right? Like, so those workers, where I think where you see that is there's this line, this economic line, where the folks that are struggling are actually kind of really in support of this more militant action, is more like support of other struggles, even if it's like struggles for teachers where they can see that economic divide of like folks are doing, because like they don't want people to lose what they have, to kind of, and like those are folks that genuinely want to see everybody move up and move forward. And I think as these struggles continue, like as it's healthy to be on those picket lines. So as you know, as teachers get on those picket lines and like get that kind of support and see other locals out there too, I think like that's what's going to start like making the shift of drawing some of that support from folks that are generally previously afraid of it. Because you start seeing what solidarity is. You start seeing that there is this inherent beauty in struggle, and that we have we have each other's back, and we cannot stop organizing for these things. And I think like there's fear in this that like there will be reprisal from this, and I'm not going to get fully into it, but like I was just arrested by Hamilton Police Services for allegedly participating in one of these rail blockades, and as that is ongoing, I'm going to limit what I say to it. But one of the things that came out of the conditions, it's really shitty because I really like bringing burn barrels to picket lines, is I can't even possess firewood. Or I'll go to jail. I can't possess matches or lighters, or I'll go to jail. But the main thing is I can't associate with 3 other folks that were arrested, and that those are tactics of the state to like. There is a genuine fear from government of like the folks that are doing the organizing work, right? They're not so much afraid of like mass numbers coming out. They're afraid of the few folks that are getting those mass numbers out, right? But we can't let that intimidate us. We have to keep coming out, speaking the things. We have to keep coming out and making those connections. We have to keep building, because there's going to be lots of struggles coming out, and we need folks like there's no board report went in for like local 79 QP inside workers, right? Like if those folks go out, we need to be on that picket line. We need to be like organizing for them, and it's one of those things too, where it's like, you get away with a bit more if you're on a different picket line. So it's like, if teachers are going out on a certain day, why don't we move all the teachers to 79's lines and 79 folks to the teachers line, where you can have a firmer picket line, where you're not going to have management right there that you have to go back to work for, right? There's so much hope in this movement that I see, and I think like folks here are doing that work, and I'm very impressed by it, very inspired by it. There is consistent struggle within similar movements economically within North America, where people are pushing back, that we can draw inspiration from. There's the teacher strike in West Virginia, that the Red Fred stuff that led to like Arizona and multiple other things. There was a book written about that called The Red State Revolt. Yeah. And it talks about different folks that kind of organized it, and it was a wildcat, and it was rank and file folks that like went against their executive. And that's healthy to do, like that's okay. Like if you understand, like you said, like we understand, like we are actually winning. So like we can vote down this contract, we can keep pushing back. But it's creating models where we inform folks and educate them of that, and creating space within your union to tell rank and file workers that you have a voice and you have a right to participate. QP Local 905 is actually doing a book club where they're reading that book, and they have a meeting this Wednesday at their hall, where I'm sure they actually have other folks come in and providing a light dinner. I can get details for that. But we've lined up Jay O'Neill, who's one of the folks who organizes stuff in West Virginia, to actually Skype in and speak about the experience and answer some questions. That is international solidarity. These are folks that it wasn't just their struggle and it's over with. These are folks that understand that this is a broader movement and are willing to support each other. And after each other's struggles, remember to be there for everybody else, to network and engage on that. So I'm actually quite hopeful that we're building something here, and we're just going to keep getting stronger and stronger. So thank you.
Right. Thank you, Barry. Here. Thank you to all the speakers. So what we'll do now is we'll open up the floor to questions or comments. So you just put up your hand and you can get up to 3 minutes to speak. Do you have any questions or comments for any of the things I've said or any of the speakers? Don't be shy. Okay, let's start with Sam.
It's interesting, Barry, you mentioned some of the tactics of the state there that are using kind of the law to put conditions on activists, and I've recently, it seems, some sort of conditioned bail with a type of plea deal that is trumped up charges, bogus charges in the first place, but then are used to keep that person from associating with certain locations or people, and I just want to know if that's something you're seeing more, especially in the Hamilton area by the Hamilton Police Force. And then just, I guess, the other statement question, I mean, it's going around that, the momentum for the teachers' strike, how long can it go? I mean, the support is there and the momentum is there now. And then it becomes this question of, is there some sort of mass action to, finish Ford off, or is this tactic? I mean, it's seemingly working, so it could kind of be ongoing, right? But is it? Could there be an issue there, and that the momentum could be lost, or other things could come up, like coronavirus, right? That would, allow the government to swiftly get an upper hand. So is the moment approaching where sustained mass action may be needed to finish this off, right? It's just my only kind of question, comment, but what you guys touched on.
Okay, Barry?
I have questions for all of the panelists. I'm wondering whether I'm speaking loud enough to be heard on the simulcast. Do you want me to move closer or just carry on?
Just carry on.
Okay, so I hope that folks who are watching and listening across the country can hear the questions. First of all, I want to thank the panel. You deserve, and you're actually getting a bigger audience than is evident at the moment, because folks are cluing into this conference from afar. And also, I think it bears saying that Workers' Action Movement, WAM, is demonstrating by this, as we have before, that we can unite different components of the left, of the workers' movement. Social democratic workers, Marxist workers, anarchist workers, and people with no specific political address. Because our fight is, of course, it's against the labor bureaucracy, but it's primarily against the bosses and their agenda. And we recognize that we have to put the movement back into the labor movement. Now, question for Sandra. I think you touched on this, but maybe you can elaborate. There's a strike vote coming in the Public Service Alliance, and you have over 100,000 members coast to coast. So how is that vote being prepared? And is there any talk about going beyond the boundaries of PSAC to link up with other unions, not only to support your struggle, but to take on austerity? Secondly, Nigel, you may have touched on it, but I didn't hear a lot about the open letter that you issued in relation to, the stance, not only of your own union, but all the teacher unions, the education workers unions, on making sure that the struggle continues against efforts to increase class size. Class size average, as you illustrated quite well, quite eloquently, doesn't really tell the tale, because there's no cap. There's only an average, and that can be manipulated horribly. So is there any discussion in your ranks, in ETFO and beyond, that you may be aware of generalizing the struggle? It's difficult for teachers to forego income. You made that point quite clearly. But if we can bring it all together, we can have a concerted effect that doesn't require an elongation of loss of income, a week, a day a week, or 2 days a week into the indefinite future. And is there any discussion of how to generalize that struggle beyond the education worker unions? Barry, you talked about networks of support and what's happening outside Ontario. Well, back inside Ontario, Patty Coates, president of the OFL, is saying that if necessary, we'll have a general strike. And I'm just wondering when you think she might conclude that it's necessary. That's a rhetorical question. How you think we can continue to apply the pressure that that resonated so well at the OFL convention last November. Thanks.
Thanks, Barry. Anyone else? Yep, go ahead.
I just want to thank the panelists, especially Barry, for bringing up 416, the inside workers, our contract coming up next week, and could be out in the lines. And hope we conduct yourselves as well as Nigel and all you guys are conducting yourselves to the teachers. I just want to ask also if people here could go onto the website yourcityto.ca. There is QB Ontario has put out a petition or a letter campaign to councillors, trying to put some pressure on them. And also QB Ontario is posting a list of our lines. And if anyone can go out and support us in those lines, it'd be amazing.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think, yeah, I mean, I guess I wanted to comment on the issue that was addressed by both Nigel and Barry around the leadership basically being very pessimistic about what the rank and file is capable of. I know that in OPSU, I saw several examples of that. Even maybe Sam can talk about this a little bit, but the LCBO workers a few years ago, the last time that they were bargaining, threatening to go on strike, they had mass support. I mean, they had a lot of support, and it was a little bit surprising, but their whole issue really tapped into the issue of precarious work and the precarious workers. And you know, instead of basically going out and fighting the leadership, push down hard on the membership. And in fact, the agreement they were offered by the employer in the Toronto region was supported only by a single vote, which out of thousands of members from across the Toronto area.
56% total?
Yeah, which was
52 in Toronto?
Which just goes to show you how little support these shitty deals, these concessionary deals actually have. But I also wanted to comment again on the whole issue of, look how much support that we received at the OFL convention. Our candidates gave between 30, 33, 36%. We built, a fairly small campaign. We did the best that we could. But we really tapped into a concern that so many workers in this province have. And, you also got to think about the demographic of who attends OFL, the people who are more involved with the labor movement. Some of them might be more militant, but you also got a lot of people who basically go along with the status quo, right? So the fact that we got that high of a percentage is really quite impressive, and it just goes to show you that the issues of fighting concessions bargaining, union democracy, building the mass movement to bring down the Ford government are attractive, and that we need to continue to do what we're doing. I guess I'll come back to the panel if there's nobody else that's around. So maybe let's start with Sandra. You have 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
So at this moment, PSCC, as from tomorrow, March 10th, will be having these telephone town halls. So they start with the town halls, so people call in to get updates on bargaining issues. With regards to how the voting is being prepared, PSSC has 140,000 members, but at present, they only have the email addresses. That's your personal email addresses for only 40,000 people. So they don't know how to get in contact with the other 100,000.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes, and that's true. So what they're doing, they're asking the local presidents to be creative. So we have to go find out where these people are. Now, we're not allowed, and PSSU tells us, as a matter of fact, UND, Union of National Defense Employees, they tell us every day, you don't use the employees' equipment. But how are you going to get these members' emails if you don't use the equipment to ask them? But PSSC on the other side is telling us that we need to be creative. So they're not telling us to go use it, but be creative. That means you can use it. That's my feeling.
Right on.
So I think that's a good thing. So what some presidents have been doing, one guy went on the D1, that's what we call it in UND, DAD, and he sent an emails a lot of his members and telling them about the strike book. If you want to find out any more information, to contact him. So when they wrote back, then he got their personal emails. And then you go to PSAC, there's something called Unionware. I don't know if you ever heard about it. So you go and you enter it into Unionware. So I have to send my secretary in my local to do that. So right now we're working on that. We're trying to get the members whose personal emails we don't have, we're trying to obtain that. It's going to be very, very, very difficult. Yeah. Just imagine 140,000 and you only have 40,000 emails, and that's ridiculous. So that's a big thing that we're working on. They're setting up different areas where they're going to have the strike vote, but it's starting next week. So in my area, I work on a place called Carling Campus, National Defense. So National Defense bought this building called the Nortel Building. So thousands of workers were moving to that building. So you have with 3 different locals. So they're going to set up a strike vote in that area for the people downtown. They set up strike votes in the hotels downtown. The last time we had those strike votes, you know what happened? I had to pay for the buses. My local had to pay for the buses to send these people to go vote. But I don't know what we're going to do this time because it costs a lot of money.
I'm genuinely worried that your members
I'm
work.
just going to wait and then to walk in. Yes, so the last time we paid, we rented a few buses, and I don't think we should have been doing it. I think that was supposed to be the job of PSAC to rent these buses to get the membership to go. But they didn't want to do that, so I don't know what's going to happen this time. Yes.
If you're ever at work at the National Defense Building and my name comes up, just message me so I get a heads up. This is why we support other unions.
Thank you, Sandra. Okay, Nigel?
Yeah, so thank you about the question about the mass action. Thank you about the question about the open letter. I don't want to, I don't want to like overblow I don't have that kind of influence. We have 80,000 members provincially. We have 11,000 members locally. These are school, we have a wide range of political thought, like all unions, right? So we've got folks that I know vote conservative. I know we have white supremacists within the teaching, with my teaching rank, right?
Sure.
Right to the other side that we've got, large L liberals, we've got, our NDP folks, and we've got anarchists, and we're all in this union together. And so right now, I am involved in what I feel is the struggle for the soul of our union, right? Where we have folks that want to continue on, in the business union type of organization it is on, versus what Eric Blanc has talked about in his book about being a social union, fighting for the common good. That is like the fight I am currently in right now. We have an election internally going on right now where we have folks that are slandering me and my allies, calling us left-wing commies and sending those kind of emails out to because we say that we should be fighting for $15 an hour, because we say we should be fighting for decent housing, because we say we should be fighting for environmental racism, because we say that our pension shouldn't be supporting minors taking away the rights of workers down in South America. So yes, I did, because we when we get these bulletins that are sent to our members to update us as to what's going on. A recent bulletin about a few weeks ago, all of a sudden didn't have language around class size. We said we'd be willing to return to the bargaining table if they continue to talk about the spec ed resources, which of course we agreed with, and then they went on to talk about what's called Reg 274, which I don't know if we'll have time to unpack right at this moment, and about our benefits. But the nugget that was missing about preconditions to go back to talk about were class size. And when we did the survey of all of our members, the 80,000 provincially, 11,000 locally, didn't matter whether you were the ultra-white or the conservative or the anarchist, everybody said class size is our number one issue. So it was like, when it wasn't on there, it was like, how dare you take our number one issue off the table? And the water cooler talk, and I know that I'm more, I don't want to I don't know who's gonna see this, right? So the water cooler talk is like, yeah, the bargaining team is nervous about it. Does feel that if they take it off the table, if we don't make it the point of emphasis, then we can continue this conversation with the government.
Right.
But our point in my caucus and in my fellow allies, we're like, no, absolutely not. That's what the membership said. That's what we got to be fighting for. That's what the parents said for us to fight for. If the parents ever found out that we somehow were going to. Anyway, while they didn't reissue a new bulletin to like affirm that it is on there, they did the work, to like undermine, to basically say, yes, don't worry, it's still on there, patting people on the head. But it's something that we're continuing to like say publicly in our social media posts, in our, as I said, in our internal campaign to send messages and say, class size matters, class size is what's important, class size is what's important. And so it's that struggle, back to my brother, my comrade who asked me about the, maintaining the mass action. Like, this is that moment for us, like school teachers, while, in the worker continuum, yeah, we do have a decent wage that pays us a decent, that's why we're saying we have to stand up for the other workers.
Exactly.
That's why we have to, while we climb, we have to lift everybody else up.
Yeah.
So that's the struggle that we're having right now. And this is what we're saying to folks, this is it. Like, we have the choice. At least we have a choice to make. At least we can say, yeah, we're gonna be willing to give up some weeks of pay in order to make sure that we protect public education. And we don't allow the government to think that they're gonna crush other workers that are trying to come up from behind us. That is what's the struggle right at this moment. I don't have an answer for you. All I can say to you is that after I leave here, going back to meet some of my comrades as we work on our re-election campaign, and we're saying, no, we're fighting for $15 an hour. We're fighting for all of those things. That's what our union needs to fight for. Woo!
Okay, Barry, 5 minutes.
I think that's like amazing. Also, and speaking of that, so with my local, we represent municipal workers, and we tried to fight for a living wage for our summer students and weren't successful. So then we tried to do political campaign for our city budget for that. And I had actually organized. Her name's Tanya Kerr. She's a member of ETFO, and she came and gave a delegation at our city council as an elementary teacher, saying, I educate folks, but I don't just do it so they get an education. I do it so that they have something, a society to go into that's maintained, right? And she spoke for a living wage. And it resonates, right? When you have folks from all these different backgrounds coming on there. I do think it's interesting where it could be the spark. I think ETFO actually holds the most leverage against the floor government out of the teacher unions, just for the fact that if high school teachers go out, kids at that age are a bit more self-sustainable. They can go home, they can cook, they can babysit, they can do that. Whereas if the elementary teachers go out, that puts on the extra pressure for the childcare needs, so on and so forth. That, I think there's extra pressure solely from your union there. That there's that leverage to actually push at bringing this government down and push at uniting with other unions to do mass actions, to do solidarity strikes, to build towards that. So it's amazing that yourself and others are openly saying, look, as I try to get reelected, this is the campaigns we're running. For the question about building of community and stuff in Hamilton around police oppression, we have strong anarchist scene there with folks that do some of the most amazing organizing work. They do it around free clothing swaps, around free food for homeless folks. Folks are doing stuff around the rail blockades, around, just tons of issues. And as that brings increased police oppression, when I was arrested, not for 1 second was I afraid that there wasn't support in place. Instantly, I was arrested at work, so luckily enough, a coworker could call somebody from the collective I'm with, as well as a lawyer. So all that stuff was being behind the scenes, and then you don't know anything. You're isolated. I was in a holding cell for 28 hours, 3 after the JP said I could leave, but somehow cops don't know how to do paperwork. So what are you gonna do? So it's one of those things that after the fact, when you get out and you start hearing about all the things that was happening, like my partner was reached out to from like a friend of mine saying like, you know, Barry's been arrested. This is what we place. Like, you know, does he have a lawyer? Because we were reaching out and we're finding lawyers for everybody. Would you be a surety? If not, we're gonna find like other like folks to be sureties, things like that. Organizing court support, folks that actually know what your favorite food is. So like when you get out, I got like a pie delivered, you know, like, but like genuine things like too. And you know, I was also still facing charges from like defending Pride in Hamilton, where I actually like really fucked up my back. And you know, people are like, okay, we understand you have benefits, but you know, when those run out, like not just organizing for financial support for your, you know, legal fees, but like how do we support like, you know, to make sure that like your body's okay? Who in the community can do this work where we kind of trade off and do stuff for free? And that is massive, and it's something that can be so easily replicated into other movements, right? It doesn't just have to be this like small group of anarchists in Hamilton doing this like caregiving work and lining things up. And I think it really comes down to it that, look, I've gotten, you get the attention for being on the front line and getting arrested. And like that work isn't more meaningful than any other work. That work doesn't mean shit if other people aren't doing all types of work. And that's not work that needs to be like glorified because it makes other people feel left out. Like the work that needs to be glorified is the work that's being done behind the scenes, that people aren't getting the appreciation for. And it's not just the folks out on like the front line, because the folks on the front line are the ones like getting that pie. The folks on the front lines are doing that work behind the scenes and maybe can't be out on the line because they have conditions from previous stuff or so on and so forth. But that type of model of looking after each other as a community is a model that like can be replicated in labor. It's a model that says like when teachers are out on strike, like how can we provide food for that day? So yes, you're losing pay, but you don't have to worry about your meal for that day. Yes, like there's childcare needs, but you don't have to be like losing, while you're losing pay, investing in those childcare things. Like we're setting that up. And that is huge. And that is the work that like does not get the credit it deserves. That needs to be highlighted. And I think like when you start looking at those models, if you start expanding it into like these structures of like unions as well, fuck, we'll be unstoppable, because those thoughts in your head of like, I can't afford this, aren't even going to take place. It's just going to be like, if we do this, I know other folks are just already working on this shit. You know, I know other folks are hearing in the news that we might go on strike, and without even reaching out, they're like organizing like defense funds, they're organizing like meal days, they're organizing childcare, they're organizing these things, and like that worry goes down. And like that to me speaks volumes.
Thanks, Barry.
Sure.
Okay. So we're gonna do one more round, but we're running kind of short on time. So if you have any questions or comments, just put up your hand. I know some folks just arrived not too long ago, so anyone?
Chair?
Yeah.
I'm not asking to speak. I'm just saying that while you're waiting for people to raise their hands, if someone who just came in from the Women's March wants to tell us how it went,
Sure.
it'd be interesting to hear.
Yeah. Does anybody want to provide a brief report?
Sure.
Go ahead, Corey. Yeah.
Hi, how's it going? There were thousands of people in the march. I don't know, I took photos of videos, you can find them. A lot of socialists, a lot of very radical slogans, whatnot. A lot of still people attacking patriarchal institutions like Doug Ford and Trudeau and those people. A lot of unions were out, from Unifor to ETFO. All the unions were out that I saw, IBW, lots of unions. I couldn't name them all, possibly. But people were in great spirits. There were drums, there was music, there was dancing all over the place. It was a beautiful day also, which really was nice to enjoy. But yeah, so it was great to be a part of. You can look at I'm sure things will be posted on the WAM group and whatever you want to see photos and whatnot. But it was great to be there, and I'm sorry that you guys couldn't be there. But it's good to be here now.
Okay. Thanks, Corey. Any questions or comments? Peter?
Maybe this question for Barry. Since you were at some of these blockades, I saw there was a live streaming on one of the blockades where some workers were going down the track, and they tried to. The train was coming, and they wanted the train to stop. The train was going head towards them. So I was wondering, like, any attempt was made, or did any unions reach out, the rail unions in particular, reach out to solidarity? Because it seemed all they were concerned about was layoffs, which were announced previously, months before.
Mhm.
So I think in that situation, you could get some greater solidarity, like a real layoff, CPOC and
Thanks, Peter. Did you have your hand up?
I was just gonna add, Nigel, maybe you could talk about, class sizes, the number, I know, say it's 23, but that could be a plus minus, right? So whatever the number is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it could be up to 4 or 5 more students on whatever the cap is. So you hear in the media, well, class size 25, but teachers may have, a 30, if there's other students that move in, right? And then maybe you could just talk about how there's been serious job losses so far across multi-sectors of education, and which kind of unions have taken the hardest hits there. And then just another point about the OFL and the numbers. I mean, they kind of magically look to will a general strike, but there's a lot of, as you said, very organizing behind the scenes and building that hasn't necessarily been done to get to that point. And then there's probably cynical people out there will look at the numbers in Niagara and say, oh, well, since 20,000 didn't show up, then the members aren't ready, right? There's not momentum there. But, that's definitely been shown across the struggle with the teachers, and the OFL strike, that's definitely not the case, right? And then, Sandra, it was interesting to know your struggles with the emails. We had similar issues in our bargaining round. And the main way we were getting them was getting people to sign strike forms. To get their strike pay. So that was just a little, I hope maybe that might help, and say, if you want to get paid for the strike, you got to sign this form and put your email on it.
Thanks, Sam.
That's OPSU liquor board workers, by the way,
Yes.
for those who might not.
Home email address, not work.
Yeah, not the employer, because they won't be able to access that during the strike.
Anyone else? Okay, so I think we're going to come back for closing remarks, because I know that Nigel has to take off soon. We'll start with you.
Oh, no, let's start with Sandra.
Okay, Sandra.
Who was that? You?
You're the only
Okay,
one there's only two
Yes,
of
that's
you.
true. Yeah.
Something I wanted to say. Recently, PSAC did massive video interviews with a number of people who suffered from Phoenix problems. There were even local presidents or component presidents and people who actually suffered. And if you see the stories, or if you hear the stories, in Grenada we say if you see the stories, Mary, you would know. If you hear the story, they're so sorrowful. One lady said, I went from paycheck to paycheck, and then I had no paycheck. I had to go to the food banks to get food. We owned this big house, beautiful home for years. The bank would not extend, and so we lost the house. I lost my house, I lost my mind. And I mean, I don't know if you guys could hear the story, but I was one of the people who was chosen to talk, and I talk about people in my local. I had one guy who he paid into this self-funded leave. So every month you pay money, and then at the end of a year or two, you might have $100,000 so you can take a leave. 90s, and because of Phoenix, he couldn't get a cent of his money.
Wow.
So right now, right now we have right now we have a grievance in place. I'm not calling any names and so on. But so much drama with this Phoenix. I spoke to the guy who did the interview with us, and he called me on Friday and he said, guess what? You made a cut in this and this and this in the video. And right now PSAC is setting up this administrative, section to deal with Phoenix issues. So they employ 2 people who will deal with any issues, any member who had problems with Phoenix. I mean, it was really atrocious. I didn't myself didn't have any problems. I got my pay every month, but a numerous amount of people suffered. That's just what I want to say. As for the board, as for strike board, I hope everything works well. It will start next week, and I'm encouraging our members to go out in droves because before, people didn't even want to know about the union. They didn't want to know who the union president or the executive was. But now they send an email saying, I've been here for 5, 6, 7 years, and I know nothing about my local. And I'm asking, how come you didn't want to know anything about your local before? But now they want to go vote no. So we're trying to tell them that if you vote no, you would not get a raise. So you have to go out with the masses and vote positively so that you get your pay. You get your raise because 7% over 4 years is nothing. It's less than
The rate of inflation.
exactly.
It's a pay cut.
Exactly. Yeah. So my job now is to encourage people to get out there and vote. Do like CRA. I know CRA is going to shut down because this is a tax season and they're going to get what they want. So
CRA is Canada Revenue Agency.
agency, yes.
Not everyone knows all.
Oh, okay. I'm from D&D and we like to use acronyms. It's the Department of National Defense, military.
CRA is the one acronym.
Yeah, so, and we're asking you guys to support us in thought, And if you know any PSAC member, encourage them, to encourage their members to go there and to stand in solidarity with us.
Right on.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna go to Nigel next.
Yeah, I mean, class size, when we talk about class size, it's an average, right? So that's specific. There is already in the elementary panel, so kindergarten, grade 1, 2, and 3, a hard cap that was negotiated and will remain in place. And the government does, while it's not in writing still, that's not what we're referring to. We are talking about in grades 4 to 8. What happens is that because it's an average, you have the way that the public school board is made up, you do have some classes where legally they have to be smaller. So children that might have the autistic children with learning disabilities, even like children that might have physical disabilities, eye, sight, hearing, are in smaller classrooms with more adults in that classroom. So that the average allows school boards to address those classes that they're legally bound to provide. And what it means is that the average will then push up the regular classrooms to 35, 40, even higher children. So think about any of you who have any parents out there or anybody who knows some kid who's 12, 13, 14 years old. These are big children, 35 of them in one classroom. That's what that's what we're saying, why we're saying, no, we need a hard cap on it. Yeah. And so every point that gets increased means that means that you're going to lose jobs, because it allows the school board to increase the class size, means they don't have to hire as many people. It's why it's a major issue and something that all of the workers understand, and why we were able to get a 98% strike vote. Wow. Because teachers understood, even the ones that were don't want anything to do with the union, they were on that issue. They were like, hell yeah, we need to make sure that we have smaller class sizes. And I think the jobs that have already been lost, we know that QP 4400, they fought a really hard fight, but and it was difficult. They settled for the 1%. They did settle. They did get some benefit increases around trying to hire back some of the cuts that were made, but the government still hasn't come through on that deal. The government's saying to QP, we have to wait until all 4 affiliates have settled before we re-meet those commitments we made in that deal we signed with you, which has resulted in the reduction of custodians The reduction of custodians means we actually have classrooms that are closed. So the principal has locked the door, changed the lock so teachers can't get in the room, because we've cut the number of custodians so that way they don't have to clean as many parts of the school. And it's going to be an issue too because of this COVID-19, because the school board here in Toronto has said they commit to cleaning high traffic surfaces. We're like, but you don't have enough staff to be able to do that. How are you going to do that? So we'll see if they answer that question. Look, it's my apologies that my partner has been sending me some text messages. Our 4-year-old's giving her a hard time, and it was my turn.
Yeah.
I got to switch off with her. She's like, "It's IWD. This doesn't seem very right." Yeah. Oh, she played that card. Anyway, I wanted to share with you just touching back on Barry's point around the solidarity. Parents have been, during our any days that we've been on strike withdrawal, we've created these solidarity camps here in Toronto. We've been trying to kind of spread them around the province, where volunteers and paid workers have been taking in children for free or at a significantly reduced amount on any day that we've withdrew services to really try to help the parents out. So we've been really happy that continues. And the other thing that we are working on is a Vote No campaign for the current budget cycle. So the province is going to be coming down with a budget, I think on March 25th. The education budget's part of that. It's where they say to all the school boards, here's your envelopes of money. Every year, it's represented since Harris. Every year it means that there's more and more services that get cut. And so school boards go through this process. They find out from the government this is how much you have, and then they twist themselves into all sorts of different angles to figure out how they can not make as many cuts as possible. But at the end of the day, it still means cuts. Last year it was 68 million. This year we're expecting it to be at least that, if not more. And so what we said last year, my fellow progressive insiders have said, last year, we should vote no, right? Just pass a budget that represents the needs of the schools, right? And so the trustees push back and say, well, if we do that, then the minister and the government will assign a manager. They'll take over the board, send over the director, send over the trustees, and that they'll do the cuts themselves. And here's the thing: the last time it was done before. It's not something that we're just saying is pie in the sky. It was done in 2002, and then a person we all kind of remember, her name is Kathleen Wynne, did it at the time. And she did it, along with about, a number of other trustees and a number of other boards, all did it together. And that led to the downfall of the Eves Harris government. And Dalton McGuinty came in right after that because he promised that there would be education peace from that point on. So it is a strategy that can work, and we believe that it will. I do hope, I'll send off to Barry and all of, the links of some of the resources we've already developed. But we really feel that the trustees should vote no, or at least pass a budget that should represent what the school boards need.
Right on.
Woo! Okay, so you're just gonna take off. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this time.
Thank you, Nigel.
Once again,
Okay, so we'll go to Barry, Mr. Barry.
With regards to the question around the rail blockades and, has there been solidarity from the workers of CP or CN? No, there haven't. It's actually interesting when those have gone up. PSAC has put out publicly endorsed the blockades. QP Ontario, QP National, QP BC has as well. There was another large public sector union in BC that have put out stuff for support, but the Teamsters union that represents the workers of CN actually put out a statement trying to get the rail blockades removed so that their workers could keep working. And so there's frustrations there, understanding that yes, there is financial implications to these workers that don't get to work, but I think where it gets frustrated is So, I mean, I don't know who's seen the news today, but there's already been like within the past week, I think 1 or 2 train derailments. So there's these like overlapping issues of like, why can't we build solidarity around a lot of things, right? Like let's support one fight and we can support another at the same time. So they're concerned about getting that paycheck, whereas like, why can't we come to have broader based conversations of like, we're actually okay with not going to work today and supporting your blockade. Here's actually some of our issues on the rail line, and like, let's educate each other. Let's sit down and say like, what are your main concerns for your struggle, because this is our facing at the workplace, and like, maybe why don't we just join your picket line as a solidarity strike, and then start demanding things from our own employer while we have these blockades up, and like, why don't we educate ourselves on how to push forward that struggle, because every worker deserves to go home the way they came. And there's been over the years reduction in staffing levels on CN Rail, and over and over again you keep hearing of severe injuries or deaths as a result of that workplace. I think it was a few years back when that train derailed in the province of Quebec that had a massive explosion. It was carrying like the oil and stuff. It was saying like they didn't have the proper staffing levels. They had the proper staffing levels according to CN. They didn't have the proper staffing levels according to the workers. They don't have enough folks to like back the trains up, to do all these things like safely. So when it starts getting away, there's nobody there to do the work to actually stop it safely. And there's also frustrations too. Like, so the current derailment, which is like, it's criminal what's happening, and they're saying, oh, we'll have our own CN police investigate it. We're not even going to have, but by no way am I supporting any police services. Like, clear here, I guess I should probably stop by that. But like, within the realm of folks that like do like and like how the government works, it's like, oh, we'll have our own company police investigate that. What a shame when there's just these real issues that could be worked upon, and these educations through struggle of building resistance towards things that can be done. So that that's the answer of my knowledge to that. And I can't remember if there was a second question that was partially related to me over here.
I think so. It was pretty short. There was only a couple of questions.
Yeah, but I think I can't remember what the other question was unless someone wants to re-ask it. But.
Patty Coat's doing a good job.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Well, what's funny is I actually, I think out of those 3, like credit where credit is due. I understand that Janice is legitimately like pushing back on the folks in there within the OFL, where she's raising stuff of like, why don't we have child minding? Why aren't we doing some of these more progressive things? And I think like that's the one person that's pushing that rally going. And yeah, although they had planned to get like 22,000 folks out and only 1,000 came out, I think where there's a win there is that got planned because we put forward this opposition where we push for help. And like, I think too, like, when Kurt was up there speaking, it was like really phenomenal about these facts of economy and like worker struggle, things like that. It's very inspiring that they had to take notice of what was being said. And although only 1,000 folks showed up, the reality is they've tried to start. And they might have done it in a model that like we would have done differently. Because they don't come from the political background or mindset of militancy, but the fact is they made an attempt to start, and they made that attempt to start because there are folks like you folks here today saying we need this pushback. I think it's very empty when they're calling for a general strike. I think that's political maneuvering on their end, where they're putting up a front that they don't generally believe in, and it's empty words and promises. But I do think that it's a start to get like 1,000 folks out. Now let's keep pushing. Let's have that shifted, because if you have 1,000 people that are willing to show up to things, like you can do so much disruption economic disruption to the province that is going to hold this government accountable. We were talking earlier about numbers, and just that you can actually get a lot done with just a few people. So if you actually just have 1,000 folks there, maybe not 22,000, but you have 1,000 folks that genuinely believing in wanting to grow a struggle and build their skill set up, it's like that's a great start to actually work on shutting this province down in reality. So,
Here, here.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Nigel. So, I think we'll take like a 10-minute break and stick around though, because the next session, which will begin at 3:15, is for an action program and a rank and file team to run for top executive positions at the Canadian Labour Congress Convention, which is taking place May 4th to 8th in Vancouver. We're going to have Kurt Young and Barry Weisleiter speaking on that panel. Thanks, everybody. Woo! Woo! You want that? Yeah. Grab some coffee.
Folks who arrived in the last few minutes, please sign up.
Oh, yeah. What's the easiest thing?
Just you could go over to Young Street because there's a bunch of places on the
Then I'm gonna check out small guys.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Awesome.
We got about maybe 2 or 3.
Yes, just come back here.
You might want to get another spot of Joe on.
Yeah, does somebody want to do that?
Is it in there?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. How's the broadcast going? I shared that new link you sent me.
So we have about 5 people. Oh, a couple people left.
Okay. Well, maybe they'll come back.
But it's up.
We're just wondering about. Can you put us in contact? Oh yeah. And it will Yeah. So it's a computer. Oh, really? It's working, but so you're using your own?
I'm using my computer.
So this computer is a
There's too much. That's too much. Too much processing power for shit that it shouldn't. Well, personally, well, that's a great.
Oh,
Yeah, but you bought
Which you just left there. So she's up there talking about law. So she was saying, yeah, that's what she said. That'll be.
I think they need more RAM. 6 GB, 5.5 because there is 131. Yeah, but mine has mine's not even so much 2 GB. Kind of get like I said.
Oh yeah, I just here, I'll be right here.
Yeah, why was it running so?
Oh yeah, we can use
And it's just like that. Like when I was checking before, it always has that jump to 80, jump to 90, and drop down and jump back up.
Yeah, they requested
Very little on the disk.
Yeah, I mean, there's only.
It's 900. Yeah, but I don't know if it's I would suspect that it's might even say.
I know. Yeah, Rebel went really downhill. Is that yeah. Looks like you're coming to the rally, right? Well, like years ago, I don't know. I
Don't do my best.
He's probably going to So yeah, I think that might be. So it's WDC Wisdom Digital. I'm not sure what price file this is. How do we know? Oh yeah, like yeah, send me like any yeah, this you won't like this yeah, those it's 1 tera. So 1 tera, you won't get 1 tera
like 1 tera flash disk is too much. So you will get like 250. So the problem I think is that one of the things is the disk and the memory.
Well, the processor is also really like the A6. If you check like the A6 processor, A6
Oh yeah. There's kind of like this slotted.
Yeah, so the whole thing.
we need to get something
So the
like
whole thing is entry level.
Yeah.
The memory, the CPU, and the hard disk is not that stable.
This is running real slow. Like, this computer could be decent if it was running good.
That were elected before
Yeah.
1979.
This computer should be lower. My computer should be lower than this.
Yeah, all very good.
Yeah, so this won't work for yeah, so yes, I think this is like we check this the hard disk. The hard disk is the traditional, this one, not the flash.
Yeah.
It's 1 tera, it's huge, but it doesn't perform well. So the new ones you get the flash disk.
Okay.
SSD.
Okay.
Yeah, they call it flash disk. Yeah.
So can you?
And then the CPU, when we Google the CPU, this one,
Yes.
it says it's entry level.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so
Okay.
even the processor.
Yes.
So this will work.
Yeah.
Will not be good for media, maybe. So like first, we need like the hard disk will be SSD.
Okay.
Like the flash drive, not
Yeah.
just the mechanical one.
Yeah.
CPU.
So
So then the range will be like, you are thinking about budget items. 700.
yeah. So we need to get rid of this line. We need to get a better quality. So maybe what we can do is clean up the and we'll have to put them in both floors.
Yeah,
This is stuff we want to do in a regular.
yeah, the audio streaming, many
Yeah.
people will be interested in
Exactly.
the streaming. Yeah, this one will work.
Right there, right around the corner.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one will, because this one will spike.
Yeah,
Because the
yeah.
hard disk is, the hard disk I think is a button.
Yes. Okay. Because I'm trying to figure out like what the hell's the problem? Why is this such a problem?
Windows
Now I
10
know.
now more like iPad and all
Yeah.
that. Then hard disk, the flash memory.
Okay.
So the first thing is the flash, the spindle hard disk mechanical.
Yeah.
Then the chip is entry level.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
like
yeah.
but this computer like $200, $300.
Yeah, yeah. It was cheap. I wanted to keep it.
$400 like
Yeah.
Like, we can still use this for the actual video, like when we're doing events.
Yes.
We can, play videos on this.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, for the live
Slideshows and
videos.
stuff. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll put a proposal forward because we're gonna need one. So.
Yeah, but it's good that you catch it. So you're trying to
Yes.
run the broadcast from it. And
It wouldn't, like, I would go to the link and there would be the video just spin, like floating, and it just did that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, now we know. At least we know what it is.
Fizzle,
Right?
not bad. How you doing, man? Good stuff. Good stuff.
Okay. So, folks, we're gonna start in like 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I got Okay. Awesome. I might not be at the field room because when I start wrestling, another fighter from there stuff. So, but no, I can. It's just can't be. Yeah. No, they can't. So, but yeah. Oh yeah, we're recording. Yeah, we had. So, but that's awesome. Right on. Yeah, you too.
Barry, I'll see ya. Take care, brother.
Yeah, I might be back. I just gotta go to the
Okay.
bathroom and
Yeah.
it's just all over the place.
Okay, cool. Well, man, do your thing.
He's doing childcare. Yes, I know.
You need writing paper?
Yeah, thank you.
Did you carry with you a charger? Ooh. If I had any assumption that I'd be using that computer for the live stream, I would have brought my charger. I thought this would be sufficient.
Oh, it's not.
I
don't know what's wrong with that base, why it's not coming in. I think
Which one is it supposed to be? This one? Okay. Yeah. But
we got the Six Flags.
yeah.
Six Flags.
We should get started.
Yeah.
So, tells us not
Wait, it's running now?
Okie doke. I'll be right
Oh, yeah. I think we should go up and not compare this, just so that
Structuring trying to reduce this.
Okay. Rarely. What do you mean? Oh, yeah, I was. On and off, yeah.
You need to write more.
Oh, okay. I wasn't ordering. Okay, ready?
Yeah, especially the show. I'm sorry. You gotta get these money. You look at it.
No, I want to. Kirk, do you want to go first? All right, good. We don't need a sound.
It's your call. I was prepared to use it. I had trouble hearing Peter.
Okay, folks, we're going to start. So if everyone wants to find their seats. All right. So before we begin, I think Peter wanted to make an announcement. Peter, come up right to the front center so people can hear you.
Use the mic if you want.
It's off right now.
It's off. Yell.
I just want to make
Go ahead.
I just want to make an announcement about an event on next Thursday, March 12th. As you know, City of Toronto has a problem with affordable housing, and in particular, rents. The Doug Ford government took away rent controls from newer buildings. So rents, basically any building that gets built now, there will be no rent control. So I'm part of a group also in Etobicoke as ACORN, co-chair. So they're having an event called Real Rent Control, demanding real rent control, and also vacancy control. That means if someone needs the unit, the next person coming in will pay the same rent. So this event is happening next on Thursday, March 12th, 1 p.m., and it's at the Ministry of Housing, Bay and College. So I'd like all SA members to attend because they've asked us. They want to have as many groups as possible, and through Rob, they've asked SA to be present there. So I think and there'll be people coming in from Hamilton, Peel, so all over.
Long, and I'm pretty much gonna read the whole convention. I'll tell you. Support. And I feel.